And y'all don't know what I went through.
Do you have a cart in your hands right now?
Nike Talk was that place that spiraled what you enjoy now.
Anyone who brought a Kobe shoe in, I would clean it for free.
Man, Melo was better than a lot of people in the league.
I saw my favorite jerseys, that one, the Barkley.
Kobe fours.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 58. This is the Dandin and RJ Machismo podcast. This is Dandin. My co-host RJ Machismo couldn't be here tonight. He's out of town with his family, so he did say what's up to everybody. So tonight we got a special guest. We got the homie Hassan. He is hailing from Queens, New York, and he's also the content creator for his podcast, First Kick Podcast. How you doing tonight, Hassan?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, awesome, man. So, as you can tell, Hassan has his own podcast. He also has his YouTube. He's with 133 episodes now?
137.
Dang, my bad. Man, we only on 58, so much props to you. I know, like we were talking before we recorded, consistency is king. King. It's major key, and definitely, respect and we admire your work that you do for your podcast, and I know it's tough work. It's not easy, like getting people on and having these, episodes like you pump them in. And I know that you were talking, before we recorded, you got some, episodes you haven't published yet. So, and you got your, I'm sure you got your 9 to 5, you got your personal life, you know what I mean? So it's hard to balance everything, but much props to you for, for doing all that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, if you're the first time hearing about me, I do a podcast called My First Kicks, and it's a lot of work goes into getting the episodes together, but I think the fun part for me is actually the recordings, because I don't really get to talk to a lot of people about sneakers unless it's like on Discord, and I'd rather have like a full-on conversation with somebody, and learn about them through sneakers versus being like, I'm just gonna, I don't. It's funny because like when you talk to people in outside settings or something like that, you don't really get a chance to really bring up sneakers unless you put like somebody looks down and goes, "Yo, you got those?" and you're like, "Yeah, man," So finding a way to just bring back like storytelling and also connect it through sneakers was just like something that I really wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, you gotta tuck it in the change. You gotta be consistent, is what we were talking about before we jumped on here. Consistency is key because, there's a new podcast every like 30 minutes, Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's like, like me and you are like content creators. We all have the same passion, right? Like sneakers and talking about outside, small businesses and sports and things like that. I think those are important things, and what makes each podcast unique. You have your own sense of branding, right? You have your own sense of style. And I think it's like, so you have variety. Variety is the spice of life. So I think it's good that we have like different types of like sneaker podcasts. So, you stand out uniquely, and, ours is very also unique in our opinion as well. So, so enough of ours. So it's all about you, Hassan. So I want to know, tell us more about yourself.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I will say I am a journeyman in my 9 to 5. I currently work within entertainment, but I spent a long stretch in entertainment, doing just like, not, I wish it was content creating. It was just post-production. I did a lot of post-production, and I mean, if you look behind me, I ended up with an Emmy. And so it's from 2019, but I don't think it's very impressive anymore, because the time has passed. But having one is really cool. I remember I worked at Comedy Central for a little bit, and my boss at the time had an Emmy, and I was just like, I want to win one of those bad. And so she was like, it's whatever. And I was just like, no. Like they don't just hand them shits out. So the like being able to actually win one just doing post production and stuff like that is really cool. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of like my background is just working in that, and like it's just this entire time since I my first job. I've just been collecting sneakers, and it's put me in the hole very, very much.
No, we're
It got me
cool.
out of a couple holes too.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
you know,
It's the gift and the curse, right? Like sneakers can
yeah.
be like your passion. It could also be like a hole in your wallet. But at the
Hmm.
same time, it could also bail you out as well, right? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like it does its wonders. And first and foremost, congratulations. You should my suggestion, you should, announce yourself as Hassan Emmy Award
I
winner.
mean, if you find me on LinkedIn, it says that.
All
So
right, all
I'm
right.
probably gonna change it soon.
There
But
you no, not at
yeah,
all. You know what I mean? It's like when 3 6 Mafia won what an
the
Oscar, right?
Grammy. Oh yeah, the Oscar.
Oscar,
Yeah,
right? They call him Oscar award winning 3 6 Mafia.
yeah.
It
I
never
mean,
dies. It never gets
yeah.
old. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
definitely gotta put some respect, for that hard work that you did. So yeah, man, congratulations. I did not
Yeah.
know that. So that's
I
awesome.
mean, people. I have a group chat, and they always roast me about winning an Emmy because they say like I talk about it too much, and I'm like, I don't talk about this at all. Like, don't even try because I mean, I posted one picture, and I think it only had like 50 likes on it, and it was the day that I got it in, and I at the same time I got the Clot Air Max ones at the same
Oh,
time.
that's dope.
And so, like, it was a coveted shoe for my eyes, but it apparently everybody hated it. And so I posted it. I was like, "Yo, mail call was crazy," and I put it on IG, and it was like 50 likes. Oh, and then somebody said, "Oh, you got the." I think it was like I posted it on Reddit, and somebody was like, "Oh, they're making participation trophies bigger now," and I was just like, "Damn, nobody could just be like, yo, that's nice," you know? So
Yeah.
that was it.
Nah, that's cool, man. Hey, I'm not Grammy. You got an Emmy. That's on
Grammy's
your.
next. I'm gonna work on that
You're
Grammy.
gonna get a Grammy. You're gonna get an Oscar, right? You can get a
Get the
Tony
whole
Award.
EGOT.
Get a Tony, and then get a Super Bowl ring. No, I'm just,
Yeah, yeah.
down
I'm
the
gonna,
road.
I'm gonna buy Jeremy Shockey's a Super Bowl ring.
There you go. Or Kevin Boss, right? We're talking about Kevin Boss's Super Bowl ring. We were talking about on the side. So
Yeah.
for sure, man. So it's nice to know that you are an Emmy Award winner, Hassan. So I
Mhm.
wanted to know more about you, growing up with sneakers. So growing up, like what was your like favorite sneakers?
I mean, so nobody. So this shoe, I love this damn shoe so much, and Clark Kent really made everybody hate it, and that is the Air Force One mid. I love mids, and minus the Jordan One mids, but the man, there was a time where I don't know if it was like a worldwide thing or I mean US wide thing, but they used to come out in these crazy colors, the mids.
Hmm.
And so I remember one time, and this is probably I want to say this is where I spawned my love for sneakers. Is there was this, and I can't find it anymore. It's a navy blue and gray Air Force One mid, and so I've looked for it for probably the past like 15 years, and I can't find it. Um, but it was a shoe that I could not stop wearing. And then, because I mean, if we like a lot of people that collect shoes that have excess shoes now haven't been were able to get like more than two pairs a year or something like that, right? I
Hmm.
was I was one pair a year, so I
Yep.
was killing it into the ground, and I didn't even have like play shoes. It was just my this was my I didn't learn about play shoes until high school, and I was like play shoes, and that was like that Air Force One. I wore it till I saw the boxes in the back and like in the bottom. And I love that shoe so much, but I can't find it again. And from there, when I was growing up, it was like you only get to pick one. You either get video games or clothes. And I was always picking video games because, I mean, listen, you can't go outside a lot if you don't have a lot of clothes. So I was just constantly picking video games and like you get your one school outfit a year or whatever. If you're fortunate, you get more clothes than that, and you get your one shoe. And that Air Force One mid was like I was like I hope I get another pair like the next year. And I think I was in like fourth or fifth grade, and that shoe just disappeared. And then I found out later, Clark Kent's on MTV saying don't wear mids and then everybody in school was just like, "You can't wear mids. Mids is trash." And you just hear that I've heard that since now. Like I don't even own a pair of mids right now. So
Oh man. So
so
is it
yeah.
because of DJ Clark Kent that you don't wear mids anymore?
No, it's because like nobody was buying them, so they stopped
Mm,
making them. You
okay.
know, I think what was the last mid that came out? I want to say, shoot, I can't even because like recently, what they went to highs. I think
There
the
were
last
some mids
mid.
that came out. There were some like because I love Air Force Ones too.
Hmm.
And I buy them for my kid. Um, I think there were some gray. I want to say it's like purple gradient, like
Hmm.
suede. I'm sure you know about them. Like these
I mean, I would have to see him, but I haven't seen him. I
these
mean,
like
I definitely haven't seen anybody wearing mids, and like yeah, nobody's talking about them. Mid Air Force Ones, man. I think they're
yeah.
sleepers. I love like when SB brought it because once I got into sneaker culture,
Hmm.
I'm a big SB head, so I was a big fan of the SB mids when they came out.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh man, we back! Like I was in my head, like yo, let's
Yeah.
go, like and I got a couple of those, but with anything SB, it's always gonna just sell out immediately. When those the grip tape mids dropped,
Ooh.
I was like, I need those, and then went to Blades and they didn't have them, and I went all over it, I couldn't get them, and it was just like an L from there. But I finally got a pair of mids, and I was just like, I need more mids after that. But people, again, it's another shoe. That people are like mids shouldn't exist. Like I've seen
Oh,
people
come
talk
on.
about
The
that.
slander,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So let's what's your aside from Air Force Ones, like what's your favorite pairs now that you currently own or like you had before?
I mean, I only want own one pair of Grails. Yeah, two pair. Let's go with two pairs of Grails.
Okay.
And I mean, the the Tweed SBs and the Melvin SBs are have
Ooh.
been my like favorites for a long time.
Hmm.
Tweet SBs is mostly because my favorite rapper is Aesop Rock. So in his like one of his booklets for his album Fast Cars, Dangerous Fire and Knives, if you look at it, he's wearing the Tweet SBs, and I saw those and I was like, I need those. And then so that year or the year after, I saw him perform four times in New York City. And each time, because I knew he was my size, I went up to him. I was like, "Yo, do you still wear those Tweet SBs? I will buy them off of you." At each show, I asked him, and he was like, "Nah, man, I'm not gonna let go of them. Nah, man, I'm not gonna let go of them. Nah, man, I'm not gonna let go of them." I kept looking on eBay. I finally found a pair for like 150, but they're a size 12. So I have a size 12 that I have to take out the insole to
The
wear in
insoles,
order to
right?
wear them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
13, I'm
yeah.
assuming.
Hmm.
Yeah. 13s are hard to find because like, back then, like I'm between a 12. Yeah, I'm about a 12. I want some 13s where like, hey
Hmm.
man, like 13, it's gotta like double socket. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like you do what you gotta do. I remember I own what I own. Oh, I saw a pair of I owned a pair of Jedi's
Hmm.
size 13, bought them for like $90, and it was like the display shoe. I was like, damn, like let me get these. And then back then it was '05, like nobody cared about SBs.
Hmm.
And then I remember like my cousins were like clowning on me, like look at those ugly ass shoes. And then like you see, I don't want to say like there wasn't that many like artists. I mean, I remember like Wale was one of
Yeah,
the
Wale was definitely
he was on it.
Chris
And then like
Brown also.
Chris Brown, and then like
Hmm.
Aesop was on it
Hmm.
too. ASAP was on it too. Um, I think some of the Wu Tang people, like the GR, like
I mean,
Wu Tang,
Raekwon, I remember
Raekwon, yeah,
that.
the Wu
Yeah,
Tang dunks.
yeah.
So you know what I mean. Like there is a lot of lineage of like dunk slash SB, and it just blew up.
Hmm.
Um, it's crazy. Um, so that's good to know that your favorite rapper you kept talking about. Can I buy your tweeds?
Yeah. Because I
That's
knew he
gonna.
wasn't wearing them anymore. I was just like, I don't, you're not, because
Oh
he ended up getting his own shoe at Adidas, so
yeah,
he had piles of
for sure.
Adidas shoes at that point, and he would only wear his Aesop Rock
Oh,
Adidases on tour. So I was just like, I know you're not wearing the
uh-huh.
SBs, and do you still have them? And then he said yes
Yeah.
at the first tour. So then I kept asking him, and I was just like, can I get them? And he was just like, no, man, I'm not gonna let them go. I was just like,
That's
I was just like, all right, man. Like, I'm pretty
That's
sure they're still in his house. I'm gonna get them eventually.
that's so funny. I'm sure if you see him around, hey, remember me? I was a fan of kept asking if you still got your tweet highs. I was wondering if I can ask you again.
I mean, listen, I'm never gonna not ask him if I see him again, but
Sure.
he doesn't tour anymore, so
Gotcha.
it is what it is.
Yeah, man.
And then I mean, look, growing up, like, yeah, I always loved Jordan, so I just wasn't fortunate enough to get him. And I mean, I'll tell you the story about the first Jordan I got,
Hmm.
and this was, I want to say, the turning point of like, oh, I don't know when's the next time I'll have a Jordan after, right? So my mom and my aunt. So like, I mean, I grew up with just like I grew up in a household where it was just me and my mom. So our other support system was my aunt. So I would always ask for Jordans every year. I mean, watch Jordan play. I'm a diehard Knicks fan, and so Jordan was constantly killing the Knicks, and I was just like, I don't want no Jordans. And then finally, you see people you go to start going to school, you start seeing people in Jordans, and then you want Jordans, and because you just want to fit in. And so begging my mom, and I think they retroed. I always change the shoe up, but I think it's like from what I remember from here and there is like they retroed like a playoff 13, and I'm thinking like, yeah, I want these, I want these. I'm showing East Bay Mag in my mom's face, like I want these. Can I get these? So my mom's like, oh, we'll try, we'll see what happens, right? And then Christmas comes around, and my mom and my aunt get together and they go buy a pair of Jordans. I I I see a box under the tree. Christmas time comes around, gotta go downstairs. You're hype. You're gonna get that box. You're gonna open these presents, and I open the presents and I see, and this is when the Jordans were coming out. All the Jordans that were coming out had that Jordan face with the lines
Yep, yep.
on the top, the
First
silver
retros.
box.
Yeah.
Open that box. Do you know what was in there?
Um, I don't know. What is it?
The 15s, black and red 15s.
Those are dope. You don't like
No,
those?
they're not.
You don't
They
like
are
them?
not dope. They're
Oh,
not dope.
come
And
on.
hold on. Let me double check. I'm talking about the right one. It's the one with the quilt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the little funky boot. Like you gotta like
Yeah,
you gotta
bro.
stick your yeah.
As a kid, no. As soon as I was going to
Oh
school with those
man,
on, the people were like, "What are you wearing? Like,
come
what is
on.
those?" And I'm like, "Yo, they're the new Jordans. They're blah blah blah." And
Yeah,
so I was getting no respect from the kids at school at the time, and I mean, I had to be like, "Oh my God, thank you," but I'm thinking like,
these ain't the
man,
13s. These not the 13s that I
these are
wanted.
not playoff 13s,
Oh,
and so. I mean, I took it for granted. I do want that shoe again, just to have it from
of
sentimental
course.
value. Um, and it was just like a moment of like sneakers. I think it taught me the first moment of like sneaker disappointment. Like I was just like, now I feel this familiar feeling even now, right? So it just preemptively got me ready for what is to come into what is sneaker culture now. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Hey man, out of respect of the 15s, people hated it. It's like what kind of shoe is that?
hmm
I mean,
I
it
mean,
had a
listen. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no.
My
I
bad.
mean, it had a dope commercial. It had dope marketing. Come on, yeah, Mary J. Blige freaking singing "Overjoyed," and then you had all these like, because it was already post Michael Jordan retirement. I remember. I
Yeah.
think it was Ray Allen, Mike Bibby. I think Mike Bibby. No, Randy
Randy
Moss,
Moss.
and then Ray Allen. You know what I mean? Like that was
hmm
dope. And then he had like it was wide leg suit Jordan towards the end of the commercial. You remember that
hmm
with his hands tucked in his he had his hands tucked in his pockets. So I mean it was cool, but like I said, I understand people hated him, but it was like I guess for you it's a sentimental shoe. Like hopefully down the road that you can
I'm gonna definitely get another
it'll
pair.
come
I mean,
first.
it's never gonna get retroed, but I'm gonna
You
definitely
got
get
retroed
like.
already. Got retroed like
No, I'm talking about the bread colorway. I'm not talking about.
oh it got retroed. Yeah, it got retro before.
No, it didn't.
It did. Go look at it. Google it.
I'm pretty sure it didn't. Because I
I
remember
I
looking at
guarantee it. Go ahead, type in Jordan 15 retro, black and red. I guarantee it. It
let's
was
see, let's
there
see.
was yeah. So like I'm an old head, as you can tell. Like I kind of have an idea of like when sneakers released. There was a controversy because uh sneaker,
Okay, 2017. You're right.
yep, wear testers wear testers made he dissected the shoe because they said on the description that there was zoom air. There was no zoom air, so he
Of
cut the
course
shoe
not.
off,
Yeah.
and then Jordan Brand apologetically like they had to like change the description because
Hmm.
it's like false branding. So they kind of got in trouble for that. But I know a lot of people didn't care. But yeah, that's
Listen,
from what I remembered with wear testers. Like he cut the shoe. Hey, there's no zoom air on this shoe, like he said.
shout out to Nightwing, man. He is
He's dope.
he's been going on a little bit of rants
I
this
saw
past
that.
week. So
Yeah, man,
shout
leave
out
him
to him.
alone, man. Leave the guy
Leave
alone.
Nightwing alone.
I know. Let him be. Let him make good content. So shout out to him
For
though. He
yeah.
did not dissect that shoe. There was
Uh-huh.
no footwear doctor yet, or he like cuts
Hmm.
off the shoe. He literally cut the thing. I mean, you can probably like watch it. They're like, hey, there's no zoom air on it. Like, you said there's zoom air. It's like freaking just plastic.
Uh-huh.
So yep. So
The
I wish you good luck, Hassan. I know. Shout out to the homie Mario.
yeah.
Mario just got I think he got a pair of white and red 15 lows
Hmm.
because he's from the SAC, and I think Mike Bibby wore them when they had like the when he wore when he was with the King. So
Hmm.
he got them too. He had them glued up. So I know he's a shout out to Mario. He's a
Shout out
store
Mario.
in the Discord. So that's the
The
homie right.
I will say, just for the listeners here, I did still hate the shoe in 2017. That's probably why I didn't
Come
get it.
on, man.
So, listen, this is more of a more after starting the podcast, I started loving the shoe and being
Okay.
like, I got to realize there's only two pairs that I would,
Okay.
well, three pairs obviously because of
Okay.
but I can't, there's one I can't get, which is the mids that like I've been looking for forever. But khaki high SBs, which is what brought me to Nike SB culture, and these 15s are those are the three pairs. Like I would have those have to like I have to have in my collection.
That's dope.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's cool though. All right, so next question for you. So you were from New York,
Mhm.
and I know New York is a hotbed for fashion. So explain to us like the sneaker culture in New York when you were growing up, and what were the changes that you've noticed recently, with all the, hoopla with like sneakers and sneaker
Mhm.
stores. So tell us more about that.
Shoot, well, you're in luck on this one with this question, asking me this question now.
Fully loaded
Yeah,
question.
I mean, growing up, Jordans were like I grew up in Queens, Corona, Queens. Shout out to the Beat Nuts and Noriega, but but I grew up in Corona, Queens, and we only had just like our local shops and then the mall. And during that time, for me growing up here, sneakers weren't like on my radar at that time. And then in high school, I think a lot of kids were just wearing like just Jordans because that's what everybody wore. I
Mhm.
think, you know, once I moved to Manhattan and started going to like high school, which is why I always ask people on my podcast, like, what is high school like? Because for me, that's when I started formulating and seeing what sneakers were about and stuff like that. But like when high school came around, it was all about just like knowing what is hot. Like why are you wearing Air Forces? We don't wear Air Forces this year. Like, like New York definitely sets a pace, and if you don't follow it, then you're out of the loop and you're instantly just being like, oh man, we wore all that stuff last year, and you like. I mean, I remember when I was still wearing Echo and people weren't wearing Echo anymore, and people were just like, "Man, why are you still wearing Echo?" And I was just like, because I like it, and they were like, "You're not supposed to like it anymore." I was just like, "Okay, like I mean, I already bought this. Like this is it for the year, you know." And so I didn't really get like a taste of sneaker culture because I wasn't cool in high school. I wasn't. It took me until like my first job because, like I said, it's either sneakers or video games, right? And so what did I do after out of high school, I got a job at GameStop, and so that took one part out so I can focus on the other part. And because I would just either steal games or buy them, so like that's or my boss would give them to me for free at the time. So once that was taken out of the equation, I was already like, all right, all my checks or whatever money I get, it was going to sneakers, and that's when I started like researching and spending a lot of time in Soho. So a lot of my time in like the 2000s, 2000 from 2006 until now has been more about learning sneaker culture and all that stuff. Like I was I used to do the loop, and if you guys listen to my podcast, you'll hear me talk about the loop. And my loop was, you hit up. I think I was started Supreme because I was too fat for their clothes. So I'd go there, look at, and then you'd get to talk to people there. Even though this was a time when Supreme had the most worst customer service, and like you go in there. I remember I went there the first time and some guy was just like, yeah, we don't have nothing that fits you, bro. And I was just like, cool, I was just here to look at a hat. Like like that was my first interaction at Supreme was. And then we would go to like clientele, which was across the street, check out their shoes, then walk to North, which was the store that Stash, I think he like co-owned or was part of it. And then from there I would always end up at DQM, and DQM is my favorite store. It's I want to say it's the one that raised me in sneaker culture. And all these stores being in Soho, and you get to see like, oh, people are wearing these, people are rocking these, what's coming out next, and this and that. And it it definitely like molds you into like having your own taste, and at the same time Soho teaches you to be yourself because nobody there dressed alike. you know once I would spend probably like 4 or 5 hours at DQM talking to the employees until they like shut down, and then I would leave. Like once you get to that point, I was just like, I don't have the money for these sneakers, but I'm gonna keep looking at them every single time, every week. I'm gonna go to this store. I'm gonna keep looking at the store because that's how I got my job at GameStop. I would just go there every single day, and I would just talk to the employees there, and then eventually, once they were like, he was like, once you turn 18, you're gonna get a job here. And I was just like, dope. So I'm thinking like, if I go to these stores and they get familiar with me, I'm gonna be able to cop stuff easier, right? The Didn't work out that way. I didn't get anything for it. Like I don't even till this day I don't even think people know me that I went in there. But like the sneaker community though, like when you wait on lines during those times, everybody was just talking to each other, and it was a lot more fun, a lot more interactive, and it was a lot of like we don't have to deal with resellers. And
Mhm.
so as I kept going, like staying in the community and stuff like that, right? I would always make the lines, and I wasn't an overnight dude. Like I did not do campouts because I always had like I would always end up working at like 7 a.m. the next morning or something like that during that time, and I was going to college also. So I just never really had time to make all the lines. So whatever lines I could make, I would always make it at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and just make the line. And this is when like resellers used to like, because I interview people and I always ask them like, yo, do you believe in resell culture? Because I believe in resell culture. Without Flight Club, without like Chris Vidal and all these dudes that who put in the legwork and made friends with these, with the store owners and the managers in order to get the shoes and not have to deal with backdooring. They would just get past the shoe, and then they'll put it at Flight Club, and then you get the first looks like the week before or the week
Mhm.
of. you know Same thing with all the like jewelry stores in Brooklyn, because that's what happens. Like they would get Jordans early, and they'll sell it for an extra $100 on top, and people would come out of town just to get that stuff. So to me, there is like resale culture is a thing, and like, but a lot of it was based around relationships. And now, you know I'll tell you right now, there is no, like, the relationships are crazy right now,
Mhm.
and we could talk about how it is now, where I think that it's a lot more. Everybody's out to make a buck, and they don't really care that about a culture. They don't really. people now are saying that like sneaker culture doesn't exist. Like people saying like, oh, you're confusing community with culture, and I'm just like, no, there's a whole little, there's like books on this thing. Like there's people that we called established in here that created the foundation, the what we believe as sneakers, and that can be including Clark Kent and Bobito, and people that put us onto tons of stuff, or you have your Vashtis, who first women who get Jordans. Like there's so much heritage in sneakers that it we I think we tend to overlook now, and we tend to just look at what we get and buy and spend our money on, and how much money we're gonna be able to get back from it. So I think that now, and I'll tell you about the time I literally this past week when I went to go to Crenshaw Skate Club's pop up here. They did a pop up here, and I'm literally talking to the owner of Crenshaw Skate Club. Shout out Toby. Like I'm literally like, hey man, like, do you think I'm able to get a pair? And he's like, yo, all you got to do is wait till 3. We're gonna give you. They're gonna be able. You're gonna be able to buy them. And so they had these security guards working out front, and I'm noticing, this one guy is just standing out front, and it's like 6 of us, and I'm like, okay, he's the reseller, and this has happened to me several times, right? Where resellers up front claims he's been here for since beginning of time, apparently, right? And I'm just seeing one person comes up, daps him up, boom, now he's in the line. Another person comes up, daps him up, boom. Like 6 people come up to him, give him a hug, be like, yo man, what? And now we're close to 3 o'clock. It's already like 3:45, and then this line has become I'm like 40 people back now, because it's 2 sets of resellers trying to get this shoe just to go down the block and make a couple, like $60. Like, is it really worth it? I guess to them it is, but to me it's not. And my thing was, the security guards were in on it. Like if you watch the video of the fight that happens, because what they were doing, the security guards would just pull, like be like, all right, you, all right, you can come in. And he's like, and then he just starts screaming, he's like, I'm letting people who's been here the entire time. And I was just like, I've been here, we've been here the entire time. Me and my boy been here the entire time. None of us get picked, but the people that showed up 5 minutes before he said that get picked. Like, how is that fair? Like, that's what it is now, right? Like the raffle system has started to go away in terms of just like picking up to pull up to pick up. It's everything is like you gotta buy, you gotta sign up online and stuff like that, and there's no communication, there's no relationships being made. It's all just like, if you already made this relationship, because like if the person made that dude who I'm talking about made that relationship years ago with that security guard, he's good. He doesn't have to stay online, he could just show up. And that's what happens, and that's what happens now. So as we talk about how the culture evolves, I think we talk about like the devolving of what made sneaker culture great, and that was communities and conversations. We all don't need the same opinion, but like we all need to just be able to be like, okay, I like those, oh, you like those too, let's you want to like work together to get them. Like, we don't have any of that anymore, and that's from the beginning of my taste of like community into now to what it's devolved into. It's kind of just like, I don't know. That's why I like having conversations, because we breathe community, we create community. We have the Discord and we have these conversations, and it's tough to do that in real life now. And I think that's where the sneaker community has become fully online, when before we had forums, and now we would meet up on lineups and meet up at dunk exchanges, or meet up at the like real sneaker cons, not like just retail con, the resale con. I think because a lot of these people just don't appreciate what has come before and what is going to come after, especially with these brands selling us stories, when we were the ones on the forums being like, yo, this is the story, check it out, and it made sneakers cool. But once, like I've said to many things or many things in general, once mainstream touches it and feeds it back to us, that's when, the people that are trying to just make money come in.
Man, that was a action packed answer, man.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm just amazed. Like you've seen so much in that, you know, in your time there in New York, and I know that it's tough to have these like relationships, especially nowadays where everybody wants to make a dollar, and you don't have that community anymore, right? Like, hey, like if you need a 13, let me know, I got you,
Hmm.
and vice versa. And I think there's still good people out there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In that Discord that we're, both in. I think, a lot of people are always watching out. So yeah, I mean it's okay. Like I said, like you were saying, like there's people have their own opinions, and you just have to just take it with a grain of salt and just keep it moving pretty much.
Yeah, I think that, listen, we got Soul Savvy and all the other, people are trying to bring back community. And I mean, paywall or no paywall is, it's fine.
Yeah.
To me, because if there's tools that go with it, fine. Like we're trying to get there. But I think the root of it though are those lines. Because like if you look up, and I mean I implore anybody that's watching this or listening to this, just look up sneaker lines. It's always fighting. It's always
Mhm.
tons of people, and that's not what it was before. It
Yep.
was people. I mean, listen, even my boy had schemes, right? You get there first, you make the list, and then you be like, "Yo, this is the list," and you're
Yep.
the
Yep.
first one on there, right? That's fine. I'd rather do that than being like, if I don't get a pair, nobody gets a pair, you
Yep.
know? Um, it, but nobody's talking to each other on these lines. Everybody's just
Uh,
worrying about, oh, am I going to be able to put food on the plate, the next week or something like, or am I going to pay this bill, or am I going to buy this next shoe? Like, that's not fun.
no, not at all. Well, I'm glad that you're able to share that, experience, the all as a New Yorker, and you've seen it all, and man, it's crazy. It's crazy. So,
I
and
mean, I
that's
don't know
what,
how it is. How's it for you out there, over
man,
there?
like for me, I'm an old head, man. Like I've done that before, camping out. I've done camp outs like when I was living in Maryland.
Hmm.
Um, I'll tell you one story. Like I don't want to take too much time. The longest I've waited was for Tiffany Diamond Dunks, the one
Hmm.
back in '06.
Hmm.
Um, there was only about maybe about like 6 pairs. I was
Hmm.
I was the first one. Me and fortunately in my home my couple yeah, me and my homies, we got our pairs because we were like, whatever happens,
Hmm.
we'll stick with each other. And then it was so bad, like it was like 200, 300 deep, and then the front glass caved in,
Hmm.
and the skateboard owner was almost like, we don't want to do this release anymore. But because they saw like all the media, there was like a lot of people like waiting in line,
Uh-huh.
so they were able to grant the people that were waiting in line. And man, we just paid for the shoes,
And
and
run
then
out of
just
there.
dipped out, man.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to say how long I waited, but it was a while. But it
Yeah.
was, yeah. But nowadays, it's like I'm older now. I have a family. It's not to my best interest. You know, if I don't get it, I don't get it. Like I'll just like
Yeah.
whatever.
Once I took enough L's, I was like, if I don't get it, I don't get it.
Yeah,
Like, I think, and that's why I'm team no resale. I do not pay resale. Like, I'll pay under retail on
yeah, yeah,
resale sites,
yeah,
but I'll never pay. I mean, I rarely pay. Yeah, I'm just gonna stick with never. I never pay resale
for sure.
because I don't think a shoe is worth more than retail, in my opinion. Even if the story hits me, the colors hit me. I'm
Hmm.
just like, we've come from getting 4 Jordan releases a year, to all of a sudden like 4 retros a year, minus the other Jordans that come out,
Hmm.
to now we get a Jordan basically every week now.
Yep.
So we're getting hyped items and SBs, almost every other week, and and definitely close to every month. And I'm not gonna get everything. I don't want every single
Mm-hmm.
pair. I
Mm-hmm.
want. I will try for the pairs that I do want. If I get them, great. And if I don't, it's fine. And I don't need to pay resales just to 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 have them in hand. Like, it's fine. Like, I can
Yeah.
appreciate a shoe from far, and I think people think you can't. Like, when I make my top 10 of the year list shoes. 10, oh my god, I can't speak. When I make my top 10 sneaker of the year list, I talk about, what goes into it, like what goes into why I made this list. And most of it is just like, how did this shoe hit me? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to buy the shoe to appreciate it, to be like, yo, this shoe hit me. I don't need to have it in hand to be like, yo, I love the story, I love the materials, these are dope. Right. I don't need to have it in my possession to be like, this is why it's number one. Like, if I can appreciate what went into this shoe, then I can do that
Mm-hmm.
and tell that in my video. But I don't need to have a 200,000 shoes in my room in order
Oh,
to
for sure.
to be considered a sneakerhead.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I mean, I've also downsized on my end as well because shoes crumble, they get old,
Hmm.
you know, you just move on. So I just kind of like it's like a time clock. I always tell them like their shoe has a time clock, like Jordan threes, Jordan
Hmm.
fours, but the polyurethane like soles. The moment you start wearing them, keep wearing them because if you don't wear them, it's just gonna crumble.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, man, that'll be another story, another day for that. So next question for you, Hassan. So tell us more. So you also have your own podcast called the First Kick podcast. So
My first kicks.
yeah, my first kick. I apologize. So what made you start that?
All right, so the story is in 2018, me and my boy Gaston Monte, he was doing comedy, and I mean, this is when I would hang out with a lot of comedians, and because of that, I was just like, I didn't want to do comedy, I just wanted. I just seen that a lot of comedians were doing podcasts though, so I was just like, I would like to start my own podcast. So I'm telling Gaston Monte, this is a dope idea. I think it's a dope idea. I just want to, like, use sneakers and ask. Oh, well, I want to have a guest on and tell people and ask people, what's your first kicks? What's that first pair of sneakers you absolutely need to have? And he was like, yo, that's a dope idea. You better do it. It's 2018, and we go around every time he's like, "Yo, come do spots with me." He's like, "Yo, all right, cool, I'll do spots with you. I mean, I'll roll with you." And so I'll go with him, and he'd be like, "Yo, you start that podcast yet?" And I was just like, "No." He's like, "I'm gonna start that podcast, bro. If you don't start that podcast," and I was just like, "All right, I'll start it. I'll start it." Don't start it. Then 2020 rolls around, and the world ended, but the we all got that little chunk of change from the orange guy, and he with that I decided to build my own computer with that because I didn't even have a computer at the time. So built that, and I was like, let me get equipment. Started the podcast. I had my boy Joey Brams on. His birthday just passed recently, and he was my first episode. He was already doing a podcast, and he's a dude that when I first got into collecting, he was like my first sneaker friend. And so I was like, this is the perfect guest. And he already had a podcast, so he could pump something also, and he has experience, so I can hit him up. So I did it, hit it up. We did pretty well on it. I was just very like super questions, question, and it just didn't feel right to me. And so later on, I started like tweaking it. I had more guests on, had other big comedians on as well, like Monroe Martin the third, and like once it got to like me getting to a groove and being cooped up in my house, I realized I don't want to have such a question oriented podcast. I wanted to focus more on using sneakers as a through line to have conversations, because that's what the essence of my first kicks means, right? Like, what that first sneaker means to you, like you want to tell that story to everybody. And so because it like started off as just like a question heavy podcast and then evolved into more of a conversation, I realized after I had Steve, who does Happy Wood Life, yeah, Happy Wood Life, and I had a after he was just like, I asked him a couple questions because he's really good at making content. Him and his son make content. Him and his son make really good content, and he just told me, you just got to be straightforward with what you want this podcast to do. And that's when I changed everything into, I want to make this more of bigger on stories, but I want them to come more natural. Like in the beginning, I was so focused on getting people to just tell me story after story after story that it kind of just seemed forced. And so once I got into that, now we're here, 137 episodes. I mean, I've had Dave Ortiz on. We talked about the creation of the Bacons. Like I mean, look, I told you DQM, that was like my second home at one point, right? Like I was there every day. I didn't buy anything, but I was there like every day. And so he was like, I was like, my 100th episode has to be Dave Ortiz. Has to be. Like, I looked up to this guy for a while. Like, he's gonna have to be. So I pushed it, and I got to that, and getting to 100. I mean, it was episode X. I was off an episode, and so I thought I was at episode 100, but I was really at episode 99. And so he's episode 99.
Okay.
But we became cool after that, and that was like the breakout of just being, more of like getting conversations happening and getting more people to like open up. So like, if you're listening to this and your first time ever hearing about my podcast, just know that if you go into it, it's more of a conversation. I will ask a couple questions, but my whole goal with the podcast is to bring back storytelling to sneakers. But at the same time, in order to do that, it needs to be organic. It needs to be a conversation where the person lets the story go, and not me being like, so tell me about that time you went to, the mall to pick up the Jordan 12s taxis. Like it would be so forced that it just wouldn't seem fruitful. So that's you get me through the point of just wanted to make a through line with sneakers, starting the conversation with sneakers, and see where the conversation goes and how many stories we get out of it.
Yeah, that's definitely, can relate with you, Hassan, because when we started, me and RJ started ours, we were like very format oriented, and we still are, because like for us it works better when we have structure. Each of us would ask a question to the guest, and kind of like we'll kind of like add our own follow-up questions. But eventually, like, we kind of had to have our own, you find your own groove, right, where you kind of set your own format, and you, instead of like reading up the questions, it's kind of like off the top of your head, like, all right, it's flowing well, I'm just gonna just ask these questions that people may have never asked you. And a lot of our guests, like, they appreciate that, like, hey, I don't, no one ever asked me that, but yeah, thanks for
when you hear that's a good question, that like when you hear that, it's like fulfilling, because like, so I always try to aim for like a couple of those an episode. But when you just have a conversation, like, I became a people person, and so I mean, it was by force. That's probably a story for another time. But once you learn how to like conversate with people in real life, and if you can bring that over Zoom, it goes a long way, where, people will just want to just say questions, and you have to be like answer to questions that you have in your head, but they're already just like walking into it. And I think it's a lot fruitful in terms of just like flow of conversation. But I try to treat it as like, we're at a party, and I was like, yo, nice sneakers. What was your first kicks? What was that first pair you had absolutely need to have? And then we just go from there.
For sure. So like, let me ask you, I'm sure, like, because we kind of are on the same field, right? Like you ask questions, you ask people, can you get on? How did you handle like when the situations where like you ask a guest and they say no? Like, did you take that to heart, or you just kept it moving? Like, how did you handle that?
All right. So I'll tell you about a rough patch I had with the podcast, right?
Hmm.
So, um, I mean, my Rolodex became pretty vast in while working at Comedy Central. So my goal was to get people on that could tell stories, right? So I had a ton of comedians in the beginning, and I thought that was gonna get me along further than it did. And then I had a co-host jump on. Shout out to Iffy in a odd way. He jumped on for like 20 episodes, and my man was verified on Twitter back when it was Twitter, verified. So he was just like, "You can touch anybody. We can touch anybody. If whoever you want, we can get them." Right. So we're working through that, and it was very easy to get guests until he left. Right. So he left my podcast. He left the podcast. Now it's my podcast again, and I was reaching out to a bunch of people, and people did not know about the podcast. And I think once if he jumped on, we saw the podcast bigger than it was at this point, because he has 100,000 followers. Like, this should be gangbusters at this point, right? And I was still coming back to earth of being like, oh nah, we only average like 30 listeners at the time. Like, it was just like, it wasn't doing well in my head also, and I needed to come to grips with that. So as I'm reaching out to people, I was sending it more of like, yo, it would be really dope for you to jump on such and such, and never being like, check out an episode. It was more of like, it was like, you should really jump on. I didn't like word it so that it would be like an honor for somebody to jump on. And so I was getting rejected by just not having answers. So there was like this rough patch of like a couple of weeks where I couldn't get anybody to be like, yeah, I'm down. I'm down. No, not even for like booking ahead. And I was trying to like get back into booking ahead, because when Iffy jumped on, Iffy was doing the booking because he was the one that
Hmm.
was bigger. So he was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. I got this and this." And then we would have like, we had Carl Tar on. We had whose episode is still going crazy at this point, right? And because he's a big podcaster, and so it was just like I got used to getting into that mode of like, okay, he's got it now. I forgot how to book people. And so 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 getting back into that mode of just doing it myself and doing it and getting turned away, I seriously had to be like, I wrote this whole big thing in my Discord, my personal Discord, and I was just like, guys, I don't think I think I'm putting too much effort into this and not getting enough out of it. And I don't know if I'm gonna end the podcast. And people were just like, no, you shouldn't end it. This is your baby. Like, this is the one thing that you actually like bet on yourself with and such, because I'm a notorious procrastinator. I mean, it took me 2 years to start the podcast, right? So it wasn't, it's something that like I actually worked hard for, and now I'm like about to be like, nah, forget this. And as soon as I said, I'm thinking about ending it, I got like 3 responses and being like, "Yeah, I'll do your podcast. Yeah, I'll do your podcast." And so, because of me letting go, I instead of putting the emphasis of like who's the guest, or who's the guest and how big are they, it was more of like, who do I find interesting? Let me hit them up. Do I know them? Do I know somebody mutual? And then we work from there. And or I mean, I'll cold message anybody really. And if it comes through, it comes through. I don't put too much effort in terms of just like, does this matter or something like that. I think when it's somebody I'm interested in, like I mean, I call it the Joe Rogan approach because he said it on the podcast, and I mean, I'm not to promote Joe Rogan on here, but he says I only bring on people that I find interesting because I know that since I know them, I will have a good conversation with them. And I took that approach and brought it onto my podcast because if you're interested in somebody and you've been watching them for a little bit, or been following them for a little bit, then the conversation comes more natural. And that was one, like, I started to switch up into more of that. And even people will hit me up and be like, yo, I want to jump on your podcast. And I would have to be like, I don't relatively know you, but like tell me about yourself. And if I find them interesting, I'll be like, all right, I'm in. Like, like I had somebody hit me up. I'll tell you this one story because of this. It's the first time I didn't really turn somebody away. I just stopped messaging them, and they never responded back when I was like, all right, I'll have you on. But this is one lady, she messaged me and she goes, oh, you should have me on your podcast. And I go, tell me a little bit about yourself. And then she goes, oh, here's an article. And I had Lois Sakani on, who writes for the Stabette, and she wrote an article on this person. And so I'm like, I don't have access to the article because it's like on like Washington Post or something like that, something with a paywall. And I was like, can you like, I mean, I was like, can you like screenshot it, send it to me or something, like give me some subtext, like give me something. I don't know who you are. And so she was just like, oh, yeah, you need to pay for the article. Never responds back to me ever since after that. And then I was just like,
the spam.
yeah. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I went back because I was like, I'm low on guest. People, like, I was just like, let me just try to maybe we'll have a good conversation. So I messaged her back and I was just like, hey, I would like to have you on. And it's just been left on scent since then. And that's probably like 2 years ago. But, booking guests, and I mean, I talked to Sockjig about this because he says I have an innate ability of just getting people to jump on. Like I'm great with networking. And I was just like, yeah, I mean, that's how I've gotten most of my jobs, really. Just I talk myself through the door. And so I just use that same approach where I would always say, like, this would be a great honor to have you on. And if they read it, they read it. If they don't, they don't. And I don't. When I was getting butthurt about it, it wasn't a good time because I was like contemplating, why am I doing this podcast? Why, And once you take away the weight of that message, then it's a lot easier to just do what you want to do and book who you want to book.
Yeah, that I can definitely relate because like for us too, like we used to take it to heart when we would message, like especially if it's like someone that you really admire or you want to have that certain person because of course you talk about sneakers and talk about sports or whatever, and then you really have your hopes up, and then they say yes, and then last minute, oh, I can't make it. Like for us, we used to take that to heart, like, man, like we did all this preparation and like we get nothing in the end. And for us, like we were affected greatly. And and then we've learned, like, to just have thick skin. You know what, just keep it moving, man. Like can't just like dwell on these kind of things. People got stuff to do, we understand that. I don't want to hold it against them. Just even if we ask them, just maybe 15-30 minutes of your time. I mean, their time is precious, period. I don't want to intervene on whatever they're doing. We don't want to be any inconvenience, but we just had to like learn the hard way pretty much, and just like everyone else. So having you on, like, just organically, like, hey, like we want you, or we find you very interesting, like you were saying, we want to have you on, tell us more about you, about your podcast. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much jump started us, like being on Idle. We were stagnant for what, about 2 months, you know what I mean? So I think, we thank you for jump starting us again to from 57 to 58 2 months later. So
listen, consistency, man. That's
yeah,
it.
man, we're trying. We're trying. All right, so I got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
So where do you see your podcast in like the next couple of years?
Well, right now I'm working on a live show, So we're probably gonna be way bigger in 2 or 3 years. I mean, I was
Oh,
looking at that
nice.
question, and I'm not a big fan of that question. It's the same with the where you see yourself in 5 years
Yeah, yeah,
question,
yeah.
because you never know. Like, I mean, my goal with the podcast is to keep doing it. That's like
Hmm.
the best I can give in terms of
Yep.
an answer. And I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I'm not Bodega Boys out here. Like, there's no, oh, they're gonna break up. Like, it's just me. Like, like, and I started this, and what I hope it could become something else and on top of it.
Hmm.
I don't. If I can turn it into like having a real studio, real live guest, and a network, jumping behind it, then I would absolutely love it. If I have to keep doing this for free, and then I become like a host on something else, like I'm also down with that. My I do the podcast for me. That's the other thing when it comes to booking guests, because that's what I started getting real butthurt because of that too. Like, oh, I'm not interested enough. You don't want to talk to me. Like, I started like really
Hmm.
doubting myself. Or like, oh,
Yep.
maybe I'm not a good interviewer. Like, you start really getting into your head about it. And once I like took the time and talked to myself and be like, why am I doing this podcast? And the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm doing this for me. Like,
Yep.
I want to talk to these people. I'm the one that want to have these conversations. Like, when it's like a form of therapy for me, because we take L's every day. Like, at one point, buying a new pair, the wear of like, oh, I got it, goes away, right? What always interests me about sneaker culture and the sneaker community were the conversations. And
Yep.
so that's why I keep doing it, because everybody's story is totally different. Nobody's going to tell me the same story unless everybody lined up. Unless I had 5 people in a row and they all lined up at the same stores at the same times for all the same releases. They're and they went to the same school and they have the same parent. Like, it's like, you're
Yep.
going to get different stories all the time. And so that, I think, because of that, this can go on for several years. I mean, it just depends on my workload, like, where do I go? Where do I go professionally? I think, for the podcast, I hope I would get bigger, because I would love more listeners. I would love more people to share their stories, and with more growth becomes better guests. Like, I'm not saying that any of my previous guests are bad. I'm just saying the growth of the guests. Like, if I can have Pharrell on one day, if I can have,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna say old West over there, but if I can get to a moment. I mean, I've thought about it. Like, what's the guest that would end the podcast? And I think, I mean, it's a toss up between, like, if there's one day like tomorrow Tinker Hatfield goes, yo, I would love to jump on your podcast, I'd probably be like, all right, I don't know if I can go farther than this. Like, it has to, because if I that's probably like a make or break episode. If he's like, some people listen and go, that podcast was not interesting, I'd probably have to end it. Like, or if it's like, that podcast
Yeah.
was mad good, like, you're about to be the next new content creator for Nike, like, then I would probably be like, all right, So, yeah, I mean, 2 or 3 years, I would hope it just gets bigger and bigger. That's it.
For sure, man. And I wish nothing. We wish nothing but the best of luck for you. Keep it going. You yeah, 137. Keep that going. You're gonna
Hmm.
hit 200. I'm sure by the end of the year, like at your pace, because you
Mm,
got. I guess you still got some in the chamber that you haven't published yet. So that's what 137 plus four. That's 141.
yeah.
You know what I'm
How is
saying?
that? How
That's
many
some.
episodes? How many episodes? If you release an episode, how many weeks are in a year?
Shoot, I don't even know, man. You have to Google that thing. Ask Siri.
Let's see.
I
Let's
mean,
see.
you
52
know,
weeks. So
52 weeks. I mean,
I'm
some.
at 130. No, I'm not gonna be at 200 by the end of the year.
I'm just saying, like, you can pump. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to give you like a goal. Hey, hit 200 by end of the year. I think you're at a good pace, and what's most important is that you are producing the content that you like. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's great that you have these unreleased episodes that you have yet to publish, but it also shows that you also have value within people as well, because you're able to organize, within your time and people's time, and you're able to, captivate their stories, and I think it's great that you were able to find a system that works for you. A lot of people, I'm a disorganized person, but you have your own way of like being organized. So that's what's most important.
Yeah, I mean, my real job is about time management. So
Yeah,
I had to teach myself about time management and also just project manage. So, I mean, it came into good use when putting this together because I wanted to be creative, and now I'm being very creative.
super dope, super dope. All right, so I got one more question, and then I'm
Mhm,
sure I already told you what I want to ask you. So you're from New York. I'm living in California, but I'm from the DMV,
mhm,
primarily Maryland. As you've seen the culture within our two states with, Nike Go Domes, Nike Foam Posits,
mhm.
New Balance. Like, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Like, you know, I'm not trying to ask you like, who originated it, but based on what you observe, from a resident of New York and seeing things and so the social media,
Mhm.
whatever it was back then, through Double XL magazine, Vibe, BET, MTV, things
Mhm.
that uh, sneaker website like Nike Talk, for example. What were your observations between that, like between the two culture state cultures?
I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't have much contact with the DMV
Mhm.
until probably like joining nsb.org. Shout out to all my NSB heads. But the the like for me it was basically high school, college, like people walking around. And I will say like I've definitely lived in a different sneaker bubble because I went to not a community. I was about to say community college, a city college. I went to a city college instead of like going away for school, and so we didn't get like, oh, I moved here to come here. Like it was a lot of just like, nah, man, I live in the Bronx. Like this is the only school that accept me. Like
Mhm.
so I didn't really get a lot of like DMV area people until more recently, and I think that you know when it came to Goa domes and the Nike what's the Nike boots, all the Nike
Yeah, Nike
boots.
boots, yeah.
Yeah, like those are all those ran roughshod with like all the Dominicans over here and 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 then the cops found it and now all the cops were wearing it so people were getting chased down because they
Heavy
use
ass,
like
damn, they
yeah
sprint like
just
in like
printing yeah
heavy ass like 15 ounce like Goa dome.
yeah
They're a lot of people don't know they're heavier than Timberlands, in my
Tim's.
opinion. A little
Hmm.
bit.
I mean, but you get that air, you get that boost of
That is
speed with
true
the
though.
air.
You do get that full you get that forefront and the back, air bubble.
And I mean, when it came to foam posits, it was like, that's the hood shoe. Everybody in
Yep.
the hood was wearing it, and like I said, I don't. I mean, I wish I could talk more about the DMV area. I never really. The only time I've ever been there was to Maryland to go see my boy Ryan Sickler perform. One of my close friends, and I spent a lot of time at Jimmy Seafood, and so
Ooh, crab place in Baltimore. Yeah.
yeah, and so I didn't really get to see what like people in. I didn't know about New Balances until the Kennedys dropped. Like once you start getting into sneaker culture, I learned that's when I started being like, okay, maybe it's not NSB or nothing. Because for the longest, maybe you want to say like 4 or 5 years, I was very like, it's Nike SB or nothing, man. I'm not
Yep.
wearing anything besides Nike SB, and you get really elitist because of that, and your eyes turn away from what's really hot, and like you
Mhm.
start shitting on Flyknit, you start being like, no, uh, and so a lot of that, and I during that time, and I'm not like that now. I really had tunnel vision. Like I was very big into underground hip hop. I did not want to listen to mainstream music. Like I thought Wale was corny at the time. Like I was very like I was that was very, me being very elitist because I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't I didn't even mess with like the mixtape era until after it was over. Like
Yep.
I was very just like, no, I only listen to, real stuff, MF Doom, Madlib. Like I was very like that, and that extension led into sneakers
Yep.
once I got into NSB, because the NSB, once you get into Nike SBs, and that's the first shoe that you taste, that community, it sucks you in. It brings you here, and it goes, this is the only shoe. These are the only shoes that matter,
Yep.
and I think because of that, I didn't really get to taste like. I'll tell the one time I tried to be different, and it was me trying to buy a pair of eggplants, and like eggplant foam posits, right? And I was
Ooh.
like, oh, this was. Do you remember Hyperflights?
I remember the hybrid flights. Yeah.
Do you remember the flight posits with the bubbles on the side?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
The
with the
flight
like
posit
weird
threes.
material.
Yeah, flight
Yeah,
posit threes
yeah, with the
with the
weird
straps.
material.
Yep.
Yeah, the weird material. That shoe, I got the flight posit version of it with the whole side is that
Yeah.
weird metallic
Yep.
thing on it.
Yep.
So that was my school shoe for high school. I think
Hmm.
10th grade. I want to say 10th or
Hmm.
11th grade. Maybe I'm wrong, but so I remember my mom bought that shoe, but I was like, "Ooh, the eggplants," and I was just like, heard about foam posits, heard about foam posits, 220." And my mom was like, "Oh my God, if you're gonna get those, you can't get anything else." And I was just like, "Okay." So I put them on, and I'm already a size 13. I look down, I'm like, "Oh no, 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 no! My feet look gigantic in these," and that's the day that foam posits died for me, because I knew that I couldn't wear them. I thought my feet really looked like eggplants, and I was
Hmm.
just like, I can't do this. And from then, I picked the flight posits, and I don't have a good track record when it was before college. Before college, I did not have a good sneaker track record. But yeah, that shoe, like that was like the switch I took, and so I went that route, and I got clowned for that shoe because it's so shiny and weird,
Hmm.
and that's when like I just did not take like mental notes of what was popping. And like I said, I wasn't in like the scene I wasn't standing at Foot Locker
Yep.
when in ninth grade, and seeing that if everybody's wearing foams or New Balances. But I will tell you, New Balance had absolutely no chokehold here, uh, and like I said, until maybe when the rise of the Kennedys and how people were like, "Oh my God, those are crazy,"
Hmm.
and yeah, and then Kanye pulled out the British arrows, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
British arrows, yeah.
That's cool, man. Hey,
Hmm.
I'm glad you're able to taste, a little taste of the eggplant foam posits, and you're like, damn, these things are huge. Because the foam posits, they mold to your feet, so they
Yeah,
are,
that's what I've been hearing.
yeah, they are uncomfortable in the beginning, but the more you wear them, they do mold to your feet, and they're just like, to me, like they're like really comfortable shoes.
Hmm.
I love foams.
I listen. I've been looking for a pair now, and
All right,
so I've been on eBay. I'm like, I'm not
okay.
paying. I'm paying maybe like $90 for a pair
No, you got
because
that. You got that. No, you
yeah,
definitely. What are you looking for? Like the eggplants or the coppers
I'm
or
looking for a pair of eggplants just cause,
okay.
cause like that's the shoe that I was just
Yep.
like maybe I should have taken the
Full
chance and bought
circle.
them.
That's full circle
Yeah.
shoe along with the Jordan 15s.
Hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you can definitely find a pair for way under retail. You can probably
Hmm.
get like a gently used. I recommend don't get the '09, get the like the 2017 retro pair. I
Hmm.
know they're coming out again this year, but I don't think
I'm
they're
not
quite
paying
the
too. That's probably
no,
gonna be like three hundred
no,
dollars.
no. I ain't paying that.
Nike's just inching us closer and closer to like $500.
No, I mean they've what they came out with something, right? The IPS like shoe thing, the little weird shoe that was like 300, $400.
That was a 300, 400, but I didn't even look. That
Yeah.
shoe looked
I
so
remember I
ugly that
saw
I
it, I'm
was
like,
like,
what
nah.
the hell is, you know
Because
what I'm
it's
saying?
supposed to be like,
Yeah,
you're supposed to be able to like put it in your pocket,
yeah,
like when you're done with it.
yeah. And then what was it, like the self-laced like Jordan 11s too, what they were like
Oh
400?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I've been trying to find a pair of those for like 150. Like that's with the charging plate, and I still
Oh
haven't been
man,
able
you're asking for the whole kits, and you're asking for the whole thing. So I wish you luck. I wish you luck. I hope
to.
you're able to find that. So
I just need one trust fund kid to be like, I don't need these anymore.
there you go.
There
There
you
you
go.
go. All right, Hassan. So I appreciate your time, man. So if you want to just plug in your podcast and where they can find you.
Yeah, everybody listening, look up My First Kicks. I made it very SEO friendly. So as soon as you Google My First Kicks, you will see My First Kicks podcast. Follow the podcast My First Kicks Pod. And if you're on TikTok or YouTube, like and subscribe to My First Kicks. It's My First Kicks everything. And yeah.
That's dope, man. Hey, man, it's been a pleasure having you on, Hassan. I wish you nothing but the best. And yeah, I look forward to like listening to more of your content. And thanks again for jump starting me and RJ's podcast again. And I know like kind of wiped off the cobwebs on our RSS feed. I'm like, damn, man, it's been like June like since we recorded. So I much appreciate it for that.
No, yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too. Peace.